Confirmation of the agenda. Councillor Syed.
Well, we think it's okay, the agenda, but we don't know yet. But okay, I'll second this.
And Gary Campbell. All in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, if any. None noted. Okay. But I guess we'll let Nigel take over, because the next thing I have is the closed session.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Reeves, sorry. I get carried away there. Should actually give the position two different names. That way people won't make a mistake. You'll always be right. What I'd like to do is to hand you each a package that includes both what we can discuss in open and what was discussed in, will be discussed in closed. I'm keeping an eye for the candidate. I told him to arrive at 5, and I suspect he may, I don't know where the traffic is between here and where he came from, but something may have occurred that he wasn't here before 5. So I just keep an eye out, and when you get to closed, I may pop out, or before you get to closed, I'll pop out and look. Okay, so with your permission, I'll pass this material out. Some of the members of council will be quite familiar with this, others will not. And give Richard at this point about 2 pages. I'll save the rest for later.
Good. Mayor around at all today, or Mayor Wynn?
Yes, but we are in a meeting right now.
I've had enough of your police officers, and I had so much documentation on them harassing me that I want to stop. Okay? All right, thank you.
That was not the candidate.
No.
I was noticing how he was dressed, and I thought, he might just fit right in here.
Anyway, sorry, God, now. Okay. Anyway, this is Mr. Reeve. This is just, if I might, a background, particularly for the councillors who weren't on the committee. You appointed me on May 29th. I believe I got the dates right. And following a telephone call from your then CAO, Ms. Chambers, I posted the ads online and with Municipal World Name, CTO, and over the next week, 2 weeks in local media. The application is closed on 22nd, but between the posting and the 22nd, I had individual conversations with each member of council that was available and the members of the senior management team. I received applications, spoke with applicants, spoke with some people who were indicated might be interested individuals, and just generally assembled the package for the interview process. I met with members of the committee to shortlist the applicants. We received 22 applicants and actually shortlisted, 7 for interviews, for first interviews, and they were held on July the 4th. Actually, 6 persons came. 1 person did not come, having cited a work-related emergency, and subsequently withdrew from the process entirely. Not because of the work-related emergency, just chose not to respond after that. After the first interview, 4 candidates were invited for a second interview. And again, this involves the one who didn't show for the first. Well, that would have been 5. One of the 4 actually, in the period between the first and the second, took a job with another firm, a consulting firm in Essex County. So we were down to 3 for the second interview. Before we had the second interview, Each of them undertook online psychometric testing. And that was done to inform the second interview process, to get a sense of what were some of the key things we wanted to make sure that we touched in that second interview. There was nobody who came out of that process where they said, oh my goodness, you shouldn't touch this person with a 10-foot pole. That process usually doesn't say that. What it says is this person has a preference for this kind of work environment or that kind of work environment. And you need to test some of these things in the interview questions. So we did that. And one of the things I think became clear from that and came clear from the committee was that you were looking for someone who, what's the proper word, had some empathy. That is, somebody who could relate to the team of staff, relate to elected officials, relate to the citizens, but be firm when the need to be firm arose. But you weren't looking for somebody who was just, this is it, this is the rules, this is the way it is, goodbye, thank you very much, there's the door. You're looking for somebody who was had some patience and some listening skills. Following the three candidates at second interview, there was a very thorough discussion by the committee members, at least that's my observation, very thorough discussion. And the committee consensus of the committee was one of the three candidates. You were clear on that. So you sent me away to do employment agreement discussions with that candidate, which I did from the 13th through to the 16th, and then came back and reviewed that employment agreement with the committee on the 17th. And following that, the mayor called this special meeting today for a final interview with the candidate, a review of the employment agreement, and subsequently the passage of the bylaw following that interview, should that be council's pleasure. This is exactly the way the process was followed when Ms. Chambers was hired, and it is basically, it's a standard process to follow in this, because quite frankly, if you find a candidate that you are interested in, you move fairly quickly. Because usually that candidate is somebody who might be in demand elsewhere. And also you've got a vacancy that you're looking to fill sooner rather than later. So that's the process. If anybody has any questions about the process, I'd be happy to respond to them, or maybe members of the committee had a comment about the process. It's the same process, Councillor Vodden, as when you were on the committee before. So what I'll do, if there's no questions, Mr. Reid, is I'll briefly, while you're still in open, I'll look out to the, see where the candidate might be, and then we can proceed with the balance of it. Right behind that schedule is the position description that we set out. And basically it reflected the kinds of things that you said. You were looking for somebody who has appropriate post-secondary education, and post-secondary education might mean a business degree or a public administration degree, just something related to the role. Some people are engineers in the position, some people are planners in the position, some are accountants. They usually come from some kind of discipline, and the preeminent degree is a master's in public administration. And there are several universities in Ontario that grant that. Queen's grants one in policy. McMaster has one that's quite often in intergovernmental relations, in international relations, and Western has one that's local government oriented. So those are the three master's programs. It's possible to engage somebody in a position like this who doesn't come from the municipal sector. If you find somebody who's a strong manager, a very strong manager, and has a strong technical background in a related field. I did assist the town of Kapuskasing late last year. They engaged an engineer who had a history of opening and closing mines and solving mining problems, but also had a very deep roots in the Kapuskasing area. and wanted to return home rather than travel the world opening and closing diamond mines and potash mines and things like that. And was happy to take a job that paid him about half to a third what he was making in the private sector. But it's not very common to see that. But you're looking for somebody who can demonstrate effective leadership to staff in terms of their own behavior and in terms of their skills in listening and provide advice to council. People will often say that the CAO has to provide leadership to council. I think that's not quite the right term. You have to provide advice to council so that council can decide where it wants to go. And the leadership of the council sits with the reeve and obviously upon the decisions of council. So that's where we are, Mr. Reeve. I'll go and take another peek. Okay. Excuse me for that.
Okay, for the ones that weren't on the committee, have you had enough time to go through the background information on the candidate?
I'd like to know what the agenda is for
Oh,
the in-camera.
pass that around.
For the in-camera. Doesn't really answer my question. What are we going to do and what are we going to talk about?
Trevor,
The process, the process in camera is going to be the same process that we followed when we hired Sharon. So that discussion is the same, is gonna be that, so it's basically,
Nigel will ask 4 or 5 questions
The candidate.
correct,
of the candidate, and just so you have
That's good.
a feeling of
Yeah.
how they answer.
Okay, that's good.
In the interviews, there was, what, about 15 questions? Find it interesting how you always hit the lights wrong when you're late. Will we recess or? Okay. Okay, for the closed session, that the council of the township of North Huron hereby endorse the clerk's delegation of the powers and duties under section 228(4) of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001. Circa 225 to Nigel Bellchamber for the Township of North Huron special council meeting to be held July 25th. This is for the in-camera. Okay. And a seconder? Okay. All in favor? Carried. And that the council of the township of North Huron hereby proceeds at 5:17 to an in-camera session. Site and Carried.